today. This is Love from RV, and this is purely for the familiars. Tonight, y'all, I don't know when this is gonna drop, but when am I not saying that shit? When am I not saying when the shit's gonna drop? You feel me? I feel so, I don't want to say out of tune with it, but I think it's more or less the topic maybe a little different compared to what I'm, usually what I'm usually like making videos about. You feel me? And a lot has happened since I made a lot of goals last year. About certain shit I wanted to do and shit, and one of them was being less fearful of like type of videos I want to make. A lot has happened, and I had to make sure my space was enough for me to get back in this creative process, I would say. I'm usually off late, but it's been a minute. Oh my god, I can just feel it, just watching this shit go. It feels so different compared to like the shit I was doing. But regardless, I am here. This is about me being present and being with with myself. It's like a digital diary. You feel me? Hopefully the video won't come off too, I don't know, eerie or like shady. I want to say a little bit. I think the first thing I would like to start with is how y'all. Hopefully, I know I'm always trying to be into videos. I'm my own fan at the same time, and I'll look at my channel and I'm like, dang man, where is he been? Feel me? Where's this nigga been? And then and there, it's still just me. Still just me anyways. And I think just being away for a while had nothing to do with like, not having any ideas. I think it's more or less like the space and, getting my mind right, or feeling like, I'm a very adjustable person. Like if I don't feel adjusted, or I don't feel like I'm getting somewhere eternally, most of the time I'm finding my external factors. And I hate doing that to myself because there's a lot to get out of me. It's a lot that I want from my child, the inside child. And, I've been doing, little ways to do that, finding ways to be more comfortable with myself, being more comfortable making these videos, doing it because I'm healing something, and I guess that's why this video is going to be so crazy to like film or just record, here. Oh, another news, I have a puppy. So that's absolutely great. Oh, he's trying to get out this door. Give me a minute. Shit, if that's not a clear indicator that can't control my external factors, yeah, you let me know. Let's get into this, man. Let's get into this fucking story time. Story time. Yes, sir. Today's story time is why I don't stay in people's houses anymore. Now, of course, who the fuck wants to live with anybody else? You have to fight dynamics, and other shit. But I guess like this video is more or less like trying to give a perspective and even a bit of support on, if there's people still going on with that process, And personally for me, on my fingers, that's how long I've been in this homelessness process, or was in that homelessness process. Family and other things. So a lot of different stuff has happened in my life that I didn't get a chance to control, and I guess that is a depiction of why I get really either upset or overwhelmed by my external environment, because I feel like I should have some control from the hard work that I've done, and that may sound wild, but it's weird because I'm also on here and it's like, man, this is my YouTube. This is the one thing I can't control. I can put out my person. I can put myself out there in whatever way that's available, or whenever I'm available to myself. And it only comes out so many times. But I think this will do some justice, putting, saying what my experiences, hopefully, and hopefully y'all get it. a time frame that really depicts my adventures on being in homelessness. And if anybody doesn't know what that means, homelessness is basically like, you know, house hopping in a way almost. You're always living with family, or not having like your own place, maybe even with your people, most of the time. And I've had a long line of just like, at least during my child, like I have a long line of just not having my own peace, and watching my family fight for that shit so hard. It really made me feel like I was a fucking slave, you know. And there's a lot of people that did good in these environments. People that I was with did pretty great. Even my mom, fucking number one MVP of my life, to handle it the best way, and just kind of like reflecting from her and how she handles it. And not everything is always gonna have the best income, but you should know where your efforts were put in to make this the best situation possible, or the most make yourself reliable for yourself within this circumstance. And what do I mean by that? It's just keeping, and I don't want to sound like a guru or nothing. Like, you sit and you're like, damn, I know I'm much more than this, but I can push through because I know myself to have done this before. And that was my process. That really was my process, going through this, this period of my life that I couldn't even recognize, because once again, everything inside of me was crashing, and I feel like at this age you always feeling like this. And what age could I be talking about? Let's talk freshman year. Another thing I have to get used to also is just like exposing myself. I mean, like, not exposing, but just giving away pieces of my life to where it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to like shit look down upon at all, because it happens. It happens to us. It's black people all the time. If I could closely remember the last time I was homeless, was when I was living with my it's hard to say, because my whole perspective has changed about like family, and who is family, and who wants to be family, and who is really pushing that to support you, and not just saying it for it to mean something. You feel me? So, and I don't even want to name drop, but at the same time, I have to give clarity to myself when I say these things. This is y'all in my diary, damn near. Shit, y'all get nosy with a nigga, so let's get nosy. I have a auntie named Jennifer, and I'll give my my points on her at probably a little bit in the middle more of the video, depending on how long this is. If you know me by then, I'm on here just to talk my shit and get another video going. At least that is very to go. I was living with my auntie Juju, and before this process, I've had a great history with my aunt, in various times and frames, and she really was like the glimmer that I saw in the worst of situations. And my mom was just like, she was like the second in that. She was like my second mom, for real. And I've known that all my life. That's the type of thing she presented, and it worked well. I felt absolutely cared to be around her. I felt like this was a woman who wanted to see me flourish in the worst of all. So I remember I had my first conversation at her house, and we were spending the night, me and my little bro. And I say this because this is gonna make sense, trust me. I'm sitting there with my little bro, and she would just sit with us, make us food. She was a fucking great cook, to this day even. An absolutely amazing cook. You just know that care. It's the same way, like with an older aunt or a big mama. You get the feeling like there's more to her love than what is being presented. There's more that she wants you to strive for, and that's why I kind of feel like a 1% bad, because I'm just like, you had so much more control compared to us being basically still children at the time of these situations. And we'll get into that. We'll get into that. So I'm having this conversation, and we're sitting in her back room. And this was a nice little flat, not like an apartment, but a nice flat house, garage, big kitchen, backyard, big living room. One room and the guest room. You feel me? So I want to say, like, recently when this shit was going on, that was the last time that I saw her, and then like 3-4 months COVID hit. COVID hit, and it was really bad with my aunties. I was living with her down in like Lafayette, and I'm just trying to, I'm having a whole fucking spiritual awakening, mind you. You feel me? Like, I don't know if it was like on purpose, but I was having a whole spiritual awakening at the time. I'm sitting there meditating, trying to find peace, and a lot of shit was happening. Niggas, during that time, motherfuckers was like fake moving. One night I woke up and there was just like boxes everywhere. My mom working a shit ton of hard trying to get this shit going. Never ever have put it against her for trying as hard as she has. So when I did start seeing this, I'm more or less saying, okay, we have to move. And that's the worst feeling, like somebody basically trying to make you panic, have a crazy panic. And, she got her son there. I love my cousins, of course. And I just remember just sitting there like, damn, I'm sleeping in his room floor or in the living room floor. Just, my mom sleeping in the living room floor, and it's just like, y'all moving right now. So it was very funny to me. So later on, we living in the car and shit, and my mom like, yeah, we gonna fuck around, move then. You feel me? We gonna do all this, and shit happened to be like finally get in the car, and it's like, shit, nigga, we ain't got no plan. Shit. Well, it ain't no plan from here. Nobody want to help. And I think that was like a most devastating year of being like 16, living in a car, and being like, damn, like totally different saying it on like TV or like seeing statistics on how fast it can happen or how common it is, but when it really, really happens, where it's like you're sitting on the edge, basically, and the system has no real way in helping, and then your family don't got no way in helping, or my auntie just, faking a move, calling to help, saying they weren't moving after we didn't, it was a way to basically fearmonger us at her crib, and that's supposed to be family. So, mind you, we're sitting here and we basically just trying to find a way to survive. You feel me? Niggas got a 400 max food stamp card, so the government said, shit, niggas is cool. Shit, them niggas gonna be alright. Of course we exist. And eventually, of course, I ended up finally getting some glimmer of hope, but barely. And basically ended up living with my aunt, Jennifer, Juju. And at first, it was nothing going on. It was completely peaceful, open, very open home, open to take care of us while this process is going on. So, like, my first little semester, I started school. I got me a little, little girlfriend. Just some low-key shit. Shit, at this time, and I don't know how to really convey this without, spilling and, really trying to get a point across on why I just don't deal with it. Just stay with me. Finally, I'm in the guest room, and we in that bitch like the fucking Brady Bunch. You feel me? And as hard as it was to be in this fucking sweatbox of a room, my auntie was there. Just waking up and like, yo, you got so much more outside of this room. And that's how I felt being around when it was just her. And she's a godly woman. That's the I ain't gonna call it a facade, but that's what she puts up. And within that time, we're getting used to the area. We're getting used to the environment. We're gonna go to school. We're gonna figure it out. You know, help it. Basically, trying to help us as two black boys. In a situation like this. So within some time, you feel me? Life goes on for everybody. Don't matter when, who. It just keeps going. You have no choice. So while she basically is now in this process, she just got this fresh home. We had no idea she had a husband at all. And I think I'll get into it. But she basically had a husband that was moving in. He was an ex-Marine, whatever the fuck the nigga is. I really don't care. Whatever he was, he wanted to make this his home. That was his clear direction. James. That was her husband, James. James Harrell. And I don't know if it was me and my brother and him not having the dynamic he wanted with us, or it was he was having like some type of issue with us, just being very free black boys. I mean, very emotional. Not even like, and when I say emotional, I mean like very in tune with how we're feeling, and we had no problem telling our aunt or my mom, her mom. But when it came to him, it was just like his whole aura field was just to be stern, and that shit really exhausted us both. And I guess I can give y'all like two different little stories. Me and my brother were like out somewhere, it was MLK Day, and once again, just trying to point us as bad kids, I want to say, or like immature kids with no guidance. And there was plenty of points in my life where it was like there was this facade to feel like we needed fathers, and I'm not sure if she was trying to project that onto him for him to do that, or to basically try to undermine my mom's parenting, considering the situation. She's out there hard working while y'all basically trying to, you have your husband trying to fuck up our dynamic. And I've been in plenty of households where, the woman will pick her husband first, but it was beyond an extent. And the best way I can explain it is we were basically verbally abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, in the worst ways possible. And it just told me at the end of it, like, these people should never have kids. And it's crazy when you really see it in the most godly of people. It actually fucking flips your brain around to even be in tune to think that a Christian woman could be with this man. We're driving up with them somewhere. It's MLK Day. And me and my brother in the guest room had a conversation. You see shit on Instagram and you just take pointers. It's supposed to, I'm not saying I was giving my information from Instagram, but more or less like being open-minded, So I'm on Instagram that morning, and I'm like, bro, they talking about, man, MLK got shot or killed or had plenty of assassination attempts, and basically saying like when he last got shot, that was when he was actually alive, because this wasn't the first common occurrence of him being shot, or trying to be assassinated. So it's basically saying like his last attempt, he still was alive. It was just he was killed there at the hospital, right? No confirmed, not saying it was true, not saying it was basically saying it was opinionated. Take it how you will. So me and my brother, they like, yo, let's go out to eat. And my mom's out working somewhere, right? James and her husband James and her husband. I want to say like 5 minutes, they basically make the car beep. 5 minutes, 6, more than that. Mind you, we sitting there chilling at first, and then we just like, nigga, they just left us in the car. They make the car go alarm, we get out, Not a text, nothing like, yo, let's come in. They make a big deal out of it, basically. Like, when an adult gets out the car, you're supposed to come with them. And it's just like, I'm not a fucking pup. I'm very equipped teenager at the time. I know what that means and everything. Just trying to find any way to undermine our intelligence because, mind you, we were black boys, not looking at more or less the situation, but more or less like the dilemma. You're not our fucking parents. So I don't know where this attitude came to feel like there was something that they had to take advantage of or even like step up to a plate type of scenario when it's like no one asked y'all that. No one asked for that type of help. So, we sitting here trying to eat and my brother just, it's nothing towards him either. My brother's just like, yo, did y'all hear about this Instagram conspiracy? Like, there's this conspiracy, like, y'all know, like, MLK did not die. Somebody really assassinated him, like, killed him in his sleep at the hospital. And when I tell you these adults fucking freaked so bad, and it's not like they couldn't reiterate what was going on. They couldn't give him the research to actually get into it. So he knows what he's saying isn't, fully true, but that it may be an open-minded comment. I mean, it's the fucking internet, for God's sake. You're gonna find something absolutely outrageous, fact or opinion. I'm not taking no mind in it, but James, her husband, is taking a fucking crazy offense to it, like to the point where he's like getting angry, aggressive, like trying to pick on my brother. And that's been a very long thing, and I will say that for my brother that her husband was an absolute bully to my little brother. He was a chubby kid, and it was just like every time he would eat, anytime he would, it's just like the fat joke, the fat Albert jokes, and it's just like no one is asking for your opinion or assistance right now. So because of his comment, right, we had to go home and basically write a whole fucking Google slide or a doc researching MLK. Not saying it was factual, not saying this was fucking concrete evidence, just for the fact that we mentioned an open-minded Instagram post. And they made it hell. I mean, they made us watch an hour of MLK. Like, who the fuck does that freshman year? And maybe, just maybe, it was a great idea to them. Well, that's just what I'm guessing. Another time that I want to say, two other times I'll say, maybe I can fit in this video. It was a big dynamic issue, and there was even points in my life while I was living with them where it was like having conversations, with people around us, and their friends are absolutely nothing like them, or the people that they do know are absolutely nothing like them, to where they won't throw their open-minded comments to them. The dude asked me at the table, I was chilling, he was like, just getting on his ass a little bit. Her husband's ass, like, bro, y'all, you basically ain't really, y'all, you ain't his daddy. You ain't they daddy. I do, and he's saying, like, nigga, I do whatever the fuck I want. Grown ass man. Probably like 20, whatever the case. And trying to like say that this is the best example of what you should do, and him, not James, but like the dude that we was talking to, and he asked him, like, do you think he need a daddy or something? Like, nigga, I ain't got no daddy, I'm fine. And then my auntie was basically like, shit, he is your daddy basically. And I'm like, fucking excuse me. I remember another instant where my mom, these are the two worst instances so far on why I would just never live in people's home again. I'd rather just sleep under a bridge or a fucking underpass. And it actually made me grow up to feel like I never needed help, or feeling like I never should ask for help, because then you're in the mercy of what happens when people are in their aggressive state or don't understand you. So I remember, my mom had to go do she had to leave the state basically, and doing her business, and she put trust in Juju to watch us, and this was already when James was having. It's a lot of instances where I can, you know, point out, but these are the ones that's just like these are the worst that I've had to experience and not even speak on. And mind you, James has a daughter, so that was going on at the same time, and I almost want to say he was trying to show off that he could do this to us in front of his daughter, making us do a load of dishes after they ate, not us, and then basically make her watch us do dishes when she never at that age knew how to do dishes in her life. And they have a whole dishwasher. Mind you, there's so many instances, but I'm just gonna get out the first ones for sure. And my brother, James, had this weird fucking rule where it was like he was the only man in the house that could walk around with underwear. If we had woke up and we had underwear on, I mean, mind you, it's hot as fuck in the room. It's a fucking guest room with three people in one bed, one TV. So it gets fucking hot. So when we wake up, when we going to sleep, we damn near butt naked. Not butt naked, but we got boxers on. So there was even instances where I would go into the kitchen and, I'll go eat some cereal and nigga would just be like, that's 30 push-ups basically. Straight morning. And this was like the same time where I basically had to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to school because my school was 2 hours and a half. 2 hours, yeah, and some more. So a bus had to go pick me and my brother up, take us all the way to school. I'm talking about 5 a.m. 5 fucking a.m. 4 even, trying to get up. And, this situation ended up happening because he was basically targeting my little brother any way possible. So one day I guess he woke up and he didn't have no underwear on. I mean, not underwear, but he had boxers on. So he found, a way to basically manipulate that action to try to discipline him. And this shit is so traumatizing to even say. I literally remember walking into basically in the guest room, and I woke up and I wanted to go in the kitchen. You feel me? And my brother is basically like at this chair in the corner, right? Making him sit in this corner, or basically by this where the backyard lead, and I'm basically like not asking questions. And I think that's a fucked up part too, where it's like people that know they love you will take advantage of your empathy. You see your brother basically in your mind being verbally abused in a house that's not yours, and then your auntie's there, somebody that does love you. You absolutely don't know this man at all. So I'm going in this kitchen, and he's basically just yelling at this nigga. I can't really remember it. I think it's good that my brain really has gotten to the point where it's like it don't remember these certain details. But I also don't want to be too late to where it's like I can't, preach what I've seen. And I'm in there, and she's basically trying to distract me, my auntie. And she's like, you want to make a smoothie? This very whitewashed attitude. And I think it was only like that because of the situation at hand. So I remember, he's over talking to Melvin, and Melvin's crying. My brother's crying, dropping his tears, because he's an emotional boy. And I just remember an instant where I'm talking to my auntie, and then I just hear a loud ass punch. And I hate being in situations where you basically you gotta brace yourself for like a household like that. And while I'm basically frozen, I turn around and I see my brother on the fucking floor, and this grown ass man basically put his hands on him. And I'm not saying my brother has been like any easy person, but at the same fucking time, it's just really the position you want to be when you have a daughter and you don't treat her like that. So I just didn't get the instance to put his hands on him. So I'm sitting here fucking frozen. I'm watching my brother on the floor as this man has put his hands on him. And I'm talking, my auntie's still trying to distract the fuck out of me. And it's absolutely disgusting. Because I actually thought if a situation ever were to happen like that, the woman themselves would be like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm not saying like all women do that. There's definitely a lot of stages in life where, black women don't get the opportunity to be in a safe household either. Even young black women, the same as me, don't get a chance to do that. So they're, even they parents or even like I don't even say like aunties, cousins, they know when this shit's gonna go down. So while she's basically trying to distract them, I'm like, I'm not finna act like a white person. Act like I don't see my fucking blood brother on the floor. So she basically goes over there and she's yelling at him also on the floor. So, of course, the first thing I'm thinking of is I'm finna fuck him up if I leave this guest room. And no, I had to call my mom and I'm like, they're fucking wilding. I'm gonna fuck him up in his own house. And I'm so respectful of people even at my worst to where I didn't even, I've never projected like how I felt about that situation and wanting to hurt that man. And a lot of boys live up being absolutely threatened by black men or just men in general because they feel like they've lost the sense to control the situation. And you get older and it's just like you're very easy to snap. It happens just like that. And I feel like I've seen that cultivated my brother a lot of times. Feeling like he never got a chance to really speak his fucking truth for the situation. And I hate that for him. I hate that for me. To where I actually, down in my life, I actually made a Google Doc to soothe myself in the situation, talk down on it, talk with myself on it, more or less, and really resonate with like, you being there had no part of what happened to you. And not everybody is as easy to get that fact, straight through them about what's going on. So my mom comes back and she's basically, her excuse was that if it's basically just discipline, we have to basically treat him like family. This is just a normal thing they do. And it's never like, my auntie has never, I'm not gonna say put her hands on me, like put her fist on me, but I would more or less say like it's more of like a banner, like you're better than that type of hit. And I don't know how to explain it, like getting thumped on your head or something, like you know what I mean. If you know, if you know. And my mom was really trying to explain to her like the way you do it is totally different because at the end of the day, James is a fucking stranger. We've known nothing of James. We don't know your husband, and it really shows how that was eating at him to where he felt like whatever respect he wasn't getting, it required him to be abusive to make that point across. Um, so that was another time we basically had to be homeless again. Um, for my brother, for that situation. And it's just like by that point, it is like one of those bullet points where it's like you absolutely cannot stop how somebody operates their home, you know? So with that, um, that was my last time being there. And I'm really saying this for my brother because, I hate that he has to deal with that shit. I hate that it was a milestone in my life that I didn't get a chance to really project my feelings or inherit like the peace that I always wanted because I had people like that in life that didn't know what the fuck they had going on in their own to where they felt like they needed to invite people to feel like they're helping helpless people. Felt like there's a good in it than really doing good. You feel me? So another situation, that person happened to me. And it's a lot of stories, but it's just like I think y'all need to get on my channel, cause being more on YouTube got to do with me like actually putting segments in and being like, yo, this is the shit. But once I get back in my mood and my mojo, I can get to y'all to do more deeper shit for real. I remember an instant where it was a cold time in Lafayette. I want to say it was December, definitely around Hellmas. And I call it Hellmas because I won't call it Xmas anymore because just certain shit. But Hellmas basically has happened. And James is on one of his rants. There was even times where if we didn't clean the dish, because mind you, we're going to school at basically 5 o'clock in the morning, taking an hour and a half drive to the school, and coming back at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at fucking night. So that means the whole day we're not eating. We're eating at the school, and we would come back and there would be a fucking flood of dishes, and he would expect us to clean them, and that felt like abuse. You know, it had nothing to do with discipline. It had nothing to do with, you know, responsibility or anything of that sort. I could just see through the bullshit. Basically, in the same instant, I ended up, you know, being physically abused myself in this, you know, this very godly father household. And, oh, I know where I was at. Basically, you know, he's banging these pots about loud as fuck for like 5 minutes straight. My mom's in the back room, guest room. My auntie's absolutely awake. So she basically wanted to watch this type of abuse happen and trying to call it discipline because it was James, and seeing that as like, these two boys aren't gonna respond to this type of fucking behavior. We don't fucking know you. You feel me? And my mom knows she has some type of kids. I am definitely a type of kid. And I'm a very respectful, you know, adult now. Where it's like, I know not to even react to that type of behavior. Anyways. So, that was another situation where it was just like random verbal abuse just for the fuck of it. You know, letting her let it happen and stuff. And this is the last instant. You know, I'll speak my word of peace. You know, yeah, I know how I am on this channel. I remember it was a very, very cold night in Lafayette, and it was basically like December time. And originally, you know, like I was saying with the dish situation, they were supposed to, Juju, James, and his daughter were supposed to go ice skating that morning. But for whatever fucking reason, he felt like this had to be done first. So he basically woke everybody up on some fucking major pain shit, some bullshit Joe Sargent bullshit. And I go in there and I wake up and he's like, you know, my brother, you gonna do the bathroom. You know, I'm gonna do, he starts telling me like what I'm gonna do. And he takes me to the kitchen, you feel me? And he's like, you're gonna clean all this up. I mean, everything was fucked. I mean, this is a nice house with full of dishes and pans and pots. It really felt like a fucking Cinderella moment living there, having to clean up people's scraps in the, you know, in the result of living there. And I just remember like going into the kitchen, looking at these tables, and the minute I was like, not like I said I wasn't gonna do this shit, but I'm like, but I didn't even do all this. And before I can even say do this, he punched me straight in my chest to where I basically like, I hit the corner of their kitchen table where it hit like my whole fucking spine. I mean, he punched me that fucking hard in my chest to where it really did send me flying. And my mom was there. Everybody was there. You know, everybody was up. So when I'm on the floor on my fucking knees and arms, he has to make air quotes or like basically suck up the air or put something in the air to be like, feel like it was justified basically. And so I looked and I was like, I looked up and it was just like so much fucking malice. I could not believe it. To want to hurt somebody, you know? And I just remember like going into the guest room and telling my mom like, this nigga just put his fucking hands on me, and I'm crying and all this shit. And James being the pussy that he is, basically, I go back out there and he's like, I want to, not even apologizing. He never apologized. And he was basically like, I'm going to take y'all ice skating. And ain't that just a bitch of a move? Somebody physically abuses you in their home, and then the first thing they do is, I'm gonna take them out somewhere. And if that's not a red flag for my own auntie, and mind you, it's none of my fucking business. It's not. I don't care. But what I will speak on is that, you do have a man in your house that has basically gotten away with physical abuse on boys. And there was even a time where he basically, he even choked my brother on a table, like in front of other boys too, like on going on a camping trip, and it was just like the worst day ever. He lost his cool and started choking my brother over something that, he didn't look into or anything. And it was just a lot going on, man. Going ice skating and just feeling completely blacked out from the world. Like, these gotta be the fakest motherfuckers in the world, and we supposed to call them family. So it really had me lost in like how I was supposed to translate this type of treatment. You treat your daughter like the golden child, but then you're also abusing little boys in your house, to the point where you never even take responsibility. And I don't really care about who who motherfuckers pray to and who they ask for forgiveness for, because at the end of the day, these two boys are still traumatized. My brother is still fairly traumatized by the experience of not having the control or support of a situation that's really have gotten out of hand. And everybody deals with it differently. Absolutely. Growing up, it's like I said in the middle of the video, like, you being there has nothing to do with the reaction, and I had to learn that myself, like, with people. Not being there does not cause this reaction, because I know I'm not the type of person. So it just felt like a way for somebody to basically get away with physically abusing boys. That's just the plain way of saying it. And I remember, like, not too long ago, my brother, getting the idea of it. It's just like I saw my brother call my auntie, and he was basically like, I'm fucking hurt. I'm hurt by this situation of having to sit here and act as if it didn't happen. And I went to my graduation with this woman. I had my last dinner with this woman, and she's still supposed to be called family because she won't, just because, she been around us, basically. And it really just makes me sit, like, if you were around something like that, if it wasn't your husband and you saw this happen, would you have the same reaction as me? If somebody put their hands on somebody you love, or say we put our hands on James, it would be an absolute issue. Or siblings, or just anybody, And I just hate that she basically wants to run off with a false mental area in her head where she feels like her and her husband has done no wrong. And I'm not saying this just for the fact, like, to get at them. It's more or less the fact of it fucking happened. And I want a video about how they've completely destroyed my support of family, or definitely took away a good piece of it, to want to contact, want to even resonate with people, get to know people. I went to this woman's open house and I still couldn't, like, differentiate it, and it's really just like, how the fuck do you go on about something like that and being around a man like that? It blows my fucking mind, honestly. But for the people that are watching, and or just in the future, like with the situation, because the situation doesn't stop just because I'm in a more stable area. There's still people doing and going on with a process like this, being in abusive homes because they have no inherent control of that environment. And it really, when you get older, it fucking eats at you because it feels like a nightmare more than something that has actually happened. You still relive an area of your life where you want to understand if the things that's happened to you meant something, or do the people that did do it understand that damage. And I've had to be completely okay with no answer, good or bad. I just have my answer, and that's that I tried my best to be who I was, and somebody basically tried to destroy it. Understand? And when you're just being you, you're always going to have somebody that's going to have an opinion to change the narrative you're trying to build onto. It could have just been easy as me and my brother going to school, and he, pay the fucking bills like he always has in his house, or whatever the fucking case was, and he just mind his business. I mean, he had quirks that helped, but it didn't go a long way because he was too busy trying to have a front on having this house, having rules, having to do all this stuff. And I almost feel bad for the nigga, for real, because at whatever age, big ass age, you should want to just sit down. You shouldn't have to feel like you have to do that. Like, what trauma are you reliving, sir? And I just don't like that. I absolutely think it's disgusting to feel like you can't control yourself when you're around kids, and you basically took advantage of somebody else's kids and then ran off with no repercussion. You just, you get to run free with your life and whatever the fuck you do. Your daughter can't free college for the rest of her life. That was his main thing too, trying to, basically demonize our kids. Like, I've been in the military, my kids can't have free college for the rest of her life, regardless of what she want to do. And it's just like, who says that in a circumstance like this one, in front of two boys, saying they need daddies? And that shit really moved me the wrong way. But hopefully there's enough stuff in here to help with whatever's going on. I think I appreciate talking to myself about this because I've been thinking about making a video. I really want to get back on this diary phase, almost, like, to really get in tune with what I'm trying to get at here. Being with myself and getting people on the same thought line. Like, I know I'm not the only person that think of these things when these situations happen. I think it's just more being more front with it. I mean, like, this is the shit that happens. This is the type of shit that has happened for a fairly long time, but I didn't have any control. And I want to say, if it's currently happening or has happened and you're just feeling like you're reliving it, to try to live with that child that didn't feel approached or upfront about the situation or behavior, and really sit and talk with him or her, and really get down to, like, feel like it's connected back with you. Tell how the story has impacted you to be better, because the situation definitely didn't happen for the better, and it's not your job. It's just something that you kind of have to come to terms with, because you don't want to be stuck in a process where it's like, I never got a chance to say this, so you get stuck. You didn't get a chance to serve your opinion, and then you're still stuck. So, to end this beautiful video, I don't know how far motherfuckers is in, to keep doing you. That's the only choice. Keep talking to the point where the way you project what you say does have power, because it's coming from somewhere serious compared to people who want to take advantage of their own preach and just want to hear themselves talk. Two very different things. So I want to say, this was for the familiars. If you tuned in, stay tuned in with my Twitch, Midnights for Marvies. I'm going to be over there whenever I can, so weekend coming up, depending on when y'all get this shit. I want to say appreciate watching the vid, and I hope y'all keep getting through it.